Eve was a curious person. She was inquisitive. She was bright. She asked questions. She challenged assumptions. She was curious. She wanted to know more. Now, Eve knew what Adam had told her about the tree in the garden. But the serpent told her something else. The serpent told Eve that if she ate of the fruit from that tree, she would become more knowledgeable. She would become wise. Well, this sounded like a pretty good idea to a curious person like Eve. Now, she also remembered that Adam had told her that before she was alive, God said not to eat from that tree. It would lead to death. She remembered Adam telling her that, and she could say it word for word. But Eve was not afraid of death more than she was interested by life. So she thought, I'll give that fruit a try. She ate from the tree, and in her curiosity, she wondered how Adam would react to this. Adam, who told her not to eat from that tree. And apparently, Adam wasn't as afraid of death as she was either, or he wasn't as afraid of disobeying God because he took that fruit without protest. And as it turns out, they didn't die, or at least not in the way that we think of death. In fact, when Eve ate that fruit, she realized how much she relied on God. This last year has provoked our own curiosity about how the world works. And as we come out of this year, next week, as we begin worshiping in a hybrid way, in person and online together, we might reflect on the curiosities that this last year has provoked for us. An illness that began on the other side of the world has had incredible consequences for all of us. Some weird things happened. Do you remember? There was a time when we couldn't buy toilet paper. The mail slowed down. Random things that we relied on in our life to be there weren't there anymore. We realized how much we rely on everyday things and systems and processes like grocery stores that are stocked with toilet paper or a reliable postal service. We realized how vulnerable we are. Like Eve and Adam. They realized how vulnerable they were. When they realized how much they had been relying on God, they noticed that they were naked. They were vulnerable. They were exposed. They realized how close God had been to them, walking in the garden with them as the breeze blew, and they remembered that God had given them the animals and each other to work together. They realized that they needed each other. Because now that they became at odds with part of creation, the serpent, the work became difficult. The cultivating and the reproduction, it became painful and challenging. Eve and Adam realized how much they relied on God. Well, sisters and brothers, this is a reminder for us that we also rely on God, our Creator. We live in a reality where there are things working for us and there are things working against us. And the only one that can pull us through the complicated reality of it all is our Creator. The things working for us, those things we rely on, like the post office or like access to health care, to be able to find healing when we are sick. These things work in our favor. Some of us are aware that there are things that work in our favor because of the way we look. Someone might see me and believe that I would be a responsible person to rent their apartment or to pay back a mortgage or to have a position in their business. But we know how complicated this is because the things that work for us sometimes work against others because they might see me and think that I would pay back a mortgage. They might look at someone else and believe that they wouldn't. We realize that this is much more complicated. This reality that we live in is fragile. We have things working against us. All of us are in this. There are corrupt politicians. There are unjust systems. We realize that we are unable to see each other as completely dependent upon God. And that, sisters and brothers, we are vulnerable, dependent on our Creator. And so as we move into a new normal, might we be more like Eve, curious, inquisitive, wondering about each other, about our dependencies on God, about the ways in which we depend upon one another, the ways in which we need each other, the ways in which God has given us each other to work, to make our heavy burdens lighter. Might we become curious about God, our Creator, the only one who can pull us through the complicated mess of reality that we live in. Might we be more like Eve, unafraid of death and the forces working against us, and more interested by life in God who sustains us. Amen.